Hey guys, and welcome to another command block tutorial. Today's video we're going to be making the special Soul Reaper Scythe, which was a suggested idea from one of my live streams. Basically, the concept for this scythe is really cool. So the scythe has a special attack that you actually can build up, and the way that you do that is by collecting XP orbs. Now, I already have this attack built up, and as soon as I sneak while holding this, it's going to draw enemies in, and it's going to attack them with this special scythe cycle attack. And at the same time, I need to charge it up. As you guys can see, it says ready on my screen. I'm going to fire this off again just real quick. And you guys can see right above my hotbar the meter for how much further I have to go to fully build this up. So you can see as I collect XP, if I haven't already collected it, it's going to give that little soul particle. And at the same time, it's also going to explode. So the really cool thing about the scythe, if I spawn in a few more enemies here, and now you guys can kind of see when I don't have it fully built up, if I'm holding the scythe and I kill something, and then I actually start picking up their XP orbs, you guys can see it actually does damage as I pick up the orbs. So even when I'm just prepping to get my attack ready, I'm going to be doing a ton of AoE damage, and then when my attack is finally ready, I can basically just draw all these enemies in and do a ton of damage. And it really does do a lot of damage. I can demonstrate here on a Ravager. Just hitting him twice completely takes him down. And at the same time, as I'm spinning, the XP I get from those spin kills are actually going to be charging up my next spin attack. So it's a really cool and unique weapon. It lets you just combo a lot of different things. So you're going to be killing lots of adds as you're charging it up. And then once you have it ready, you're just going to be able to draw things in and kill just a huge horde. And at the same time, we also have strength, so that way you can actually use it as a somewhat effective weapon in the middle of your fighting. So anyways, let's get into the commands. Alright, so starting off, we have a couple of scoreboards that you're going to need to make. As always, I put them in an impulse command. You guys can do this, you can type them in chat, just make sure you type this at some point. We have two scoreboards we're using, that's Scythe A, and just Scythe. We also have these two repeating command blocks. This is just to make sure that players have a score. Instead of having a null score, they're going to have a score of 0. So go ahead. I have this on a long tick delay of 100 ticks. You can even make it longer. Just add all players Scythe A of 0. And right here, do the same thing of just Scythe, make that equal to 0. This just makes sure that the player always has a score and they're never at a null score. That's going to be important for some of the upcoming commands, as you'll see in a second. First set of commands we have right here is just going to be actually building up the Scythe score. So the Scythe score, and I will demonstrate that just 1 second. Scoreboard, objective, set display sidebar, Scythe. So this is going to be actually how far you are into your attack. So you guys can see on the side of at the bottom center of my screen, I have like a little display bar. It has 2 green and then 4 red. That's my progress bar for building up the attack. And you can also see on the side of the screen that my Scythe score is 6. Well, what's basically going to happen is as I pick up XP, or as I get near to XP, so you see these particles, so it actually goes up by 1 every time I collect an XP. And this progress bar represents more or less how close I am to actually being ready for the attack. So if I summon enough here to hopefully charge up my attack fully, I may need a little bit more. Okay, now that I fully have my attack ready, as you can see, it changes. Instead of a display bar, it says ready. That means as soon as I sneak, it's going to set my Scythe score back to 0, and I'm going to do this little spin attack. So now, because my Scythe score is 0, I don't have any display. As soon as I start building it up, my display is going to be there as long as I'm holding the hoe, or the scythe. In this case, we're using a netherite hoe. As soon as I switch off of it though, that progress bar is going to fade away and come back as soon as it is in my hand again. Keep in mind we're also getting strength for this. So some of the things to look at. We have this right here. What we're doing is basically checking anytime there's an XP orb, we're going to run at any player within 5 blocks that is actively holding the hoe, because you only get the charge if you're actually using the hoe, not just using other weapons. Then it's going to go ahead, as long as my Scythe score is between 0 and 19, so not above 20, because once it hits 20, we're ready to use it. It's just going to add a Scythe score of 1, like I just demonstrated. Then the next set of commands are just going to be the display commands. Oh, sorry, these are actually, the next one's going to be the particle commands. So what we're doing is anytime that it gets picked up, we're actually going to play the soul particle at the particle effect. So basically, when I pick this up, when I get in range, you guys will see that little soul particle that pops up, representing that I collected it. Next thing we're going to do is the exact same particle command, but with the kind of explosion particle, because it's also going to deal damage every time you pick up an XP orb. Following that, we're actually going to do the damage. So this means every time that I'm absorbing one of these XP orbs while holding the scythe in my hands, it's going to damage everything within a small radius of about 5 blocks of that XP orb. Next up, we're actually going to give the player regeneration every time they pick up an XP orb. So just to show you guys this real quick, throw out some of these. Boom, I actually get a couple seconds of regeneration. So now every time I'm collecting one of these XP orbs, I'm also healing myself. So it's a really strong weapon to just keep you in the fight at all times. We'll go back and just show that real quick so you guys can see the commands. It's the same command like I showed you earlier. We're just executing at the XP orb and then giving it regeneration. I should also mention that every time we're doing this, the command, the XP orb does not have the tag XP, because in the next commands, we're actually going to give the XP orb XP. This is just so you're not getting multiple charges off of a single XP orb. So once it goes through all these commands, it's not going to repeat, it's only going to do it once. And that's more or less the system for building up kind of this custom weapon that's going to be building a charge. And also, if you guys want to use your own custom weapons, this system right here can actually be a really good thing to kind of charge up an attack. Say you don't want to do a spin attack, you want to do your own custom weapon, you could very well use this same system to make your own custom weapon. Next up is the actual display. All we have here is checking for the scythe score. We're doing a title command, so that's just going to put it in the action bar like I have right here. And you can customize this, you can use whatever symbols you want, but the way I have it is every 3 score is going to be 1 extra thing in the progress bar. So you guys can do the same display you have here, or you can change it up. You want to use different symbols or different colors or anything like that, absolutely go ahead. This is just how I have it set up, and you can also just copy it like you see here. The only thing to note is that we have a bunch of commands like this. The only thing is we have these numbers here, they're changing, so they're going up. They're showing different levels of the scythe, and then we just have a different display here. So all these commands are going to be exactly the same except for the number here and the display here. So no more commentary on this, I'll just show them briefly. You can pause if you need it, but they're almost all the same command. And the only thing different is once we hit 20, it's going to say ready instead of the progress bar. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to be doing is actually giving the strength to the player. So what we're checking here is, does the player holding the netherite hoe, holding the scythe, have a scythe score of 0 to 10? If so, we're going to give the player strength 1-1, which is actually going to be strength times 2. So as you can see, my strength right now, when I hold this, is strength 2. But if I get a few more levels here on me, now you'll see my strength is actually strength 3. So as I'm actually powering up my scythe, it's also going to become more deadly the closer it is to actually helping me out with the attack. And that's what this command does right here. So this command is if it's 11 to 20, boom, I'm going to get strength 2. So the more you're using this, the more powerful it's also going to become. Next up, what we're going to be doing is actually preparing for the attack. So what this does is checking, do I have the scythe score of 20? That means my attack is fully charged and I'm holding the hoe. Then we're going to do a sneak detect, so it's detecting if I'm sneaking. We're going to set my scoreboard to Scythe A to 1. So Scythe A represents the attack itself. So while Scythe represents how close I am to the charge, Scythe A is my progress through the attack. So just to kind of show you how this is going to work, I'm going to fully charge up here and watch my scoreboard on the side of the screen. It's going to start counting up, it goes to 1, starts counting up, and then once it hits 30, it's going to reset me back to how I was. Basically, the Scythe A score counts how far into the spin attack I am. This command is what initializes it, the one that I just showed you, this one here. This is what sets it to score A, that means the attack can start. You can see while I'm not in the attack, my scythe score is 0. Anyways, what we're doing is we're going to be checking right here. Once it does this, so once it sets my Scythe A score to 1, it's going to set my Scythe score, which is the charge, back to 0. This means it's resetting the charge, ready to start collecting again as soon as I start the attack. Now, we're actually going to get into what's adding it. So this is on a 3-tick delay. All we're doing here is if my Scythe A score is 1 or higher, it's going to add 1 to the Scythe score. So as soon as I actually have 1 in the scoreboard, it's going to start slowly adding it, and then it's going to do a couple of different things for the attack. what we're doing here is if my score is 30 or higher, it's going to set it back to 0. That means the attack is finished, go back to normal. The next thing we're going to be doing is messing around with the camera. So if you guys remember from the attack, we actually go above the player and look down on the player as they're doing the spin attack. That's what this command does right here. So we're checking for the player. If they have a score of 1 to 2, that means they're right at the beginning of the attack. It's going to set their camera to right above the player, facing down at themselves. The next thing we're going to be doing is the opposite. So once the Scythe A score is 29, it's going to clear the camera. This just makes it so you're not looking at it for too long, and it just fixes your camera after you're done. Pretty simple. The next thing we're going to be doing is giving an animation. So whenever the Scythe A score is 1 or 2, we're going to do the animation armor stand riposte. And we're going to be doing this for 5 seconds, which is about the length of the attack. That's what makes it look like I'm holding the scythe sideways, which is how the whole spinning attack kind of functions. The next thing and final thing we're going to be doing as part of the attack is the Riptide sound. It might be hard to hear in the video, but as I'm spinning, we're going to be playing this sound effect the whole time. That's going to be basically just an extra sound effect to make the attack look even cooler. Next thing we're going to be doing is the actual spin. So what we're checking is for the player while they're spinning around, just go ahead and teleport themselves in place. And this facing here means out in front of them, but also to the right of them. So this 3 means 3 blocks out in front. This 1 means 1 block to the side. So this is just going to be teleporting them in place, but in a circle. The next thing we're going to be doing is while the player is in this attack, because they're drawing all the enemies to them, as you're going to see in a second, we're also going to give them pretty heavy resistance for the duration of their attack. Finally, we have the actual attack draw, damage, and particle. So the first thing we're going to be checking is if the player is in the middle of their attack, it's going to be executing for all mobs that are nearby, so within 10 blocks, except outside of 1 block, so not themselves. They're going to be teleported towards the player. So if you're near kind of a group of enemies and then maybe aren't coming to you, this is actually going to basically draw all the enemies in like almost a little tornado, so that way you can damage them a lot easier. The next thing we're going to be doing is the actual damage. So we have it more or less with this command if you copy it exactly. I know there's some fancy positioning stuff here in this execute command, but while the player is in the attack, we're going to basically be checking this specific direction, which is around the end of the weapon. We're going to damage any mobs that are coming into contact with the weapon for a total of 60 damage, which is enough to 2-shot a Ravager. This is also enough to kill a player with no armor 3 times over. This is quite a lot of damage for this attack, and it's going to hit an enemy multiple times if they do survive the first one, but you can always make it significantly more if you want to. Or if you think that's a bit overpowered, maybe you want to do this for PvP, you can make it less, you can make whatever number you want, as always. Final thing is just this cool little particle. So at more or less the tip of the hoe, or the scythe, as you're doing this attack, it's going to have this really cool soul particle coming off the tip of the weapon. And that is basically it. It's kind of complicated, it's kind of a unique weapon, but I figured it's just something fun. It was something that was recommended to me. Also, one thing to mention is that I did these commands on live stream. It was actually something that my chat voted for, or something they suggested, and then voted for which one I would make, and then I made it live. So if you guys would ever like to be part of that, suggest some commands, make sure you guys keep an eye out for live streams, try to join in whenever you see them happening. But anyways, that's all for the tutorial. Join the Discord if you guys need any help. The link will be in the description. But I'm going to end this off by just fighting a big group of zombies, because I can. Alright, time to fight these. I don't even need to fight them. Look at this. Look at that. I don't even need to fight them. You can see if there's enough enemies in your spin attack, you can chain this attack so easily. Because all the XP orbs from everything you killed during the spin attack are charging up your next spin attack. So it's a very strong weapon, especially for crowd control. Doesn't do a ton of damage against bosses, because it is a hoe. It's much better for ad clear, but it's really effective on ad clear. As you guys can see, I just took out that massive horde of husks in a very short period of time. And at the same time, I'm also getting constant healing from this attack, so it's really easy to stay in battle and stay topped off on health at all times. And yeah, that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, bye.